May I please have your full and undivided attention? It is time for the Paranormal Rundown. Hello, this is Cedric Dankworth-Smythe. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all fans of the paranormal, the supernatural, the unusual, the entertaining, the terrifying, the horrifying, and those things that go bump in the night and in the daytime too. This is the one and only Paranormal Rundown, where the lads, the gang of nerds, choose from over 2,700 carefully curated paranormal topics. The lads have no guest tonight, therefore they have free rein to approach topics as they wish. Tonight they'll be talking about thought forms, Greek daemons, spelled D-A-E-M-O-N-S, the eternal mystery of Angela Lansbury and Paul McCartney, the horrifying hum of the Aokigahara suicide forest in Japan, and much, much more. Avalon Leanne Dankworth-Smythe will be with us tonight also, and I guarantee you she has a lot to say. Let's get started with the rundown.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Rundown. This is David Griffith. I have here with me Vic Hermanson and J.J. Johnson and Father Michael Birdsong. And we also have Josh Birdsong helping us out. We are starting episode 2 of season 2. And we hope you really enjoyed last week's episode, or last episode we put out. I know that we all did, and we're looking forward to chatting some more. So let's just get rolling.
Very good.
Okay. Well, the rundown list is now up to 2,603 topics, or as Dave likes to say, now with over 2,600 exciting and mysterious topics.
That's right.
You can actually write an Excel algorithm or an Excel formula to give you that little sentence. Okay, it's also been completely read, and as far as I know, there are no duplicates in there. I ended up taking about 15 out because I did find some, and they might have been slightly different. You know, they might have been something like Church of Satan, or then it would be Satanic Church, or something like that. So
Right.
I was able to get rid of all those. So I have 6 topics that have come up in my first roll, and I'm going to read them. You guys tell me what you think. Topic 1, soul migration, the cloud atlas theory. Topic 2, Gerald Schroeder, other humans without souls evolved before Adam and Eve. Topic 3, Jesus, the lost years. Topic 4, are physical laws the same throughout the universe? Topic 5, thought forms. And topic 6, the Loretto Chapel stairs, how legends grow. And I'm seeing blank faces.
Thought forms, or
That's where I was leaning.
or if our physical law is the same throughout the universe. I like both of those.
Well, who wants to start off with thought forms?
And by thought forms, we're talking about tulpas, correct?
Well, maybe. I think definitely a tulpa is a thought form. Okay, but is it a situation like all tulpas are thought forms, but not all thought forms are tulpas?
We had last episode, we touched on it a little bit, and we were talking about AI, and we were talking about tulpas and so on, and we were talking about railroads. And So the question is, so a thought form, you also have this idea of universal forms, right? From a philosophical standpoint.
Like Plato?
Yes. So
Okay.
something that exists beyond physical existence, the idea of something that exists before the physical reality exists or independent of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And JJ, you've got the philosophy education on this. I know. So I'm curious to hear your take on it. So when we talk about the idea of a tulpa or some other generated thought form from a paranormal standpoint, how much do we line up with that? How much is maybe the mental thought process is writing a new form in that scheme of things that then is able to come into existence? Does it make sense what I'm asking?
Well, you've brought up several thoughts for me in asking that. Who remembers the sort of photographs that would show up in early spiritualist seances?
Yep.
Some of them are really, really goofy. There'd be a woman and there'd be all this stuff coming out of her nose.
Lovely ectoplasm.
A whole bunch of it, too, sometimes. And yeah, so that was ectoplasm. And then there would be sort of a disembodied hand, and every once in a while you'd see a trumpet or something. But one of those seance photos that I saw was in an old Victorian house that had these big, huge, tall ceilings. And there's this big, massive, hulking thing over in the corner, easily 8'4" or something. Very, very large. And the caption of the photo is, a hulking form was generated through the energy of the seance. Now, it seems like these things didn't stick around once the seance was over. Where'd they go?
That begs the question: are these things being made up in their own mind, and are they seeing them due to that, like a hallucinogen or something? Are we placing ourselves in that tulpa space or state, so to speak, to where we're bringing about a scene in our own mind? I don't know if that's how I want to say it or not, but are we self-inducing it?
Oh, I would think so, definitely so. But the question then is, are we first off, the huge hulking form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It could have been something generated from the minds of the people there, or the spirits or whatever of the people there. It could have been a big chunk of cloth they had hung from a hook on the ceiling.
Yeah.
With a piece of plywood that was more or less cut out to look like a hulking monster. Or it could be something that just generally exists and needs some sort of focused energy to manifest. I can see how a thing like that could exist in several states. I don't believe I've ever run into anything like this.
Mm-mm.
Well, there's theories. I'm sorry. I'll just throw this out there and I'll hand it to you, JJ.
Oh, no, it's fine.
There's theories out there that a lot of the paranormal activity may be induced as thought forms, right? That EVPs are thought generated answers to questions that you have in your mind that you may be creating on your own. As a thought form. So in that case, you may have experienced some of that with the EVPs that you've gotten. I don't think that they are, but maybe some of them are, but I think the majority of them aren't. But that is a theory out there. Now, off to you, JJ.
Oh no, please! Finish if there's more to finish, please finish.
No, it's just a thought. Just from what Vic was saying, he hasn't experienced it. If that is what's happening if the person thinking of the EVP and then experiencing the EVP, capturing it, if it's based on that person's thoughts, whether specific or random, then you've gotten EVPs on your recorder and on your system.
I have. Yeah.
So in that case, if those were real, if that's really how it works, then you may have experienced them.
I may have. Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Well, honestly, one of the things that scared me really badly as we were traveling somewhere in state for a debate tournament way back in high school, we were all sitting around in the car and we got on the story of ghost stories. And
as the guys will.
Oh, yeah. And one of the girls that was with us, she piped up and said that she was at a party and I don't remember what they were doing, but they were screwing around with something. It may have been a Ouija board. I don't quite remember. But the important part is that she went to the bathroom, and out of the corner of her eye, she saw a dark robed figure that stood about 8 to 9 feet tall, just looming over her. And she screamed. She ran out of the room. They came back in. There was nothing there. But she swears that she saw it. And I just had this absolutely vivid image of what that could be. And I had a very hard time falling asleep that night. You know, the interesting part to all of this is a few things. Do we take Plato's idea of thingness? And actually, it's kind of funny. I used to have a boss who would always, extremely intelligent guy, really nice, but he would always go on the thingness of a thing. And he would just repeat that over and over and over. And it just became kind of a running joke. And it was, but not in a malicious kind of way. But does the thingness exist outside of the context of that which represents it? 2, when are these things real? And if they are real, are they manifestations of ourselves? And I think the kind of more scary part to it is, can we actually create these things, as in the Philip experiment? And I was actually talking, and the reason I'm really kind of on this, and it's kind of a coincidence that we're talking about it, is last week I finished an interview with Anna Maria Manello.
I'll listen to that.
And who's been on here. And one of her books was about a young girl found a book on demonology and began to fixate upon one particular image. And her and her friends would spend countless hours after school on the weekends just drawing it and actually trying to communicate with it. And this thing began to cause havoc in this girl's life as a result. And
Can you explain what the image was?
She didn't go into detail about that. And I was stupid enough not to actually ask her about that. But one of the things that
might have been the safer thing to not ask about.
Yeah, but I was really curious though, and I still kind of am. But anyway, we were one of the things that I first asked her after she had told the story was, do you think that this was a case of obsession that then moved into oppression in terms of the demonic sense? And she said, well, I didn't put forth an interpretation, but that's something in which the reader has to come to. Is it that which you just advocated for, which seemed to make the most sense to me, or is it a tulpa that was generated from this obsession from the girl and her friends that was then sprung to life? And I had no answer because I honestly have no idea. I would lean toward the demonic side of it, as I am wont to do, but it generally was a great question, and I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I lean with the Philip experiment, right?
Yep.
You sit around and ask long enough for Philip to appear, which is the more likely outcome, that you have created something completely out of nothing, out of pure thought that represents Philip, or you have finally attracted something otherworldly or demonic or preternatural that says, I can be Philip for a little while.
Right.
And
exactly.
And then has all kinds of fun with you. I don't know, but that's the way I lean with that experiment. But the idea that if we could actually create something that is a thought form, and then how that fits in with philosophy and the idea of the thingness of a thing, right? There is a chair form, and then we make chairs that represent that form. So if we create a tulpa, are we creating a new form that didn't exist before? And then after a while, it's created enough that it can actually be brought into the physical world.
Yeah, and see, that's like, so that is kind of the Platonic ideal concept, espoused, well, first, quite literally espoused in the cave story with the shadows. But philosophy has come a long way since then, for better or for worse. And the viewpoint that is kind of accepted, and whether you take that to the extreme of postmodernism or not, it's that we view the world through the cage of language. Language is what actually, it's not that there are things out there and we understand them because of those pure forms. If you want to take the Kantian concept, it's that there are categories in our brain which are then able to put words to those things and go from there. Or the more postmodern concept of it's only language that allows us to understand these things. And so we are always looking through that cage of language and we're not really existing within a metaphysical space. We're only existing within a lingual one, and we'll forever be denied that kind of metaphysical contact to begin with as a result of that. So if you go to that extreme, there's no way that we could create things. And to me, and I'm not saying that's the correct interpretation, but I would say that language plays a true key part in all of that. And I think that's a pretty solid idea.
That was dumb. I tried to hit the mute button. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I also think it boils down to also the whole Tulpa thing is how bad do you want to see something? How bad do you want to see something created? And if I want something bad enough, I'm going to talk myself into seeing something. Let's say we're messing around with the Ouija board like JJ was talking about earlier. I mean, we have to make a conclusion. Does it exist only throughout this Ouija board, or does it exist outside the realm of this Ouija board? And then, or we're at a seance and I'm calling upon this thing and I really want to see something. And then, so I convinced myself in my brain that I'm seeing this 9-foot shadow standing behind JJ, right? And then all of a sudden, the power of suggestion gets going. I say, Dave, don't you see it? It's right there. Look about 8 feet above his head, and then you start seeing the outline. What if I influence you long enough, you're going to see it.
His left leg's right over there by Clive.
That's right.
So you're suggesting that if you want it bad enough, you will create it in your mind, but it's not actually existing.
Exactly. You can force yourself to see it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that kind of group hypnosis idea that was going around.
But in cases where it actually exists, where it actually presents itself.
Well, see, there's an interesting thing I just stumbled upon. Apparently, there's something called Tulpamancy. People that are practitioners in creating tulpas by using lucid dreaming and meditation techniques.
Hello, this is Avalon Leanne Dankworth-Smythe. The topic is Tulpamancy, and you will not believe how much information is available out there on this exceedingly unusual topic. For instance, I found a 193-page book, written with considerable care, with the title, Tulpa's Do-It-Yourself Guide to Tulpamancy. The author is listed simply as Tulpa. I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Tulpa are quite proud. The book's about the author section reads as follows. Tulpa is a tulpa named Tulpa. Born accidentally from a daydream character who was given a few too many liberties, Tulpa has studied tulpamancy and plurality obsessively for existential reasons. Tulpa was 4 months old when writing of this text started. This text was written over the course of a year. The book is actually far deeper than I expected, and we will link to the PDF in the show notes. Here is an example of the book's prose. To gain the ability to create a tulpa, you must master your own mind. But not by controlling what goes on inside it. Instead, we must gain the ability to use our mind in some obscure ways. Most guides involve disciplined long forcing sessions designed to get you into a trance-like state of focus on your tulpa. From this trance state, your brain can start making a tulpa. Well, one can't easily argue against that, can one?
That's a new one.
Tulpamancy is a totally new one to me.
Is there something that you can expound upon that on just a little bit more, Josh?
I
guess you'd be creating something like a tulpa that would then provide you with information.
Yeah.
That's the mancy part.
But the way you described that, Josh, it didn't sound like it actually exists. You're talking within a dream state. So again, you're looking at creating something that doesn't exist in the natural world.
Mm-hmm.
It's and look, some of my experiences have been in a dreamlike state where it's hard to tell if I'm awake or not.
Oh, mine too.
And,
Mm-hmm.
So there are certainly things that have happened to me that didn't feel dreamlike, but there are aspects of them that they would be really hard to have been in the real world unless other people were blocked from seeing or hearing it.
Right.
Actually, if you want something a little bit more nerdy than normal for me, which I know is kind of an accomplishment, but if you look at classical Ethiopic, there's a word that's called fakada, Faqada, and the base verbal form literally means he finds. If you make it an active participle, fakadi, it becomes the word necromancer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
He who finds the dead. And if you take that kind of concept, I mean, it could be that a tulpamancer is, yes, just, doing this within an altered state, but it could also be that I would imagine to one of them is you're attempting to put your brain into an altered energy state so that it's more conducive to creating something that could affect the real world. Maybe.
I felt a little bit down when we started this, and now I feel all happy.
I did too, honestly. I did not want to be here, not because I didn't want to see y'all, but it's just been a strange week. But yeah, now I'm back to normal.
Yeah, now I'm feeling happy.
Well,
so,
speaking of strange, I would compare all of this. You guys know me. If it's real, it's real, and I'll tell you it's real. But but this, it kind of reminds me. I don't know if y'all remember, but back in the early '80s, I remember this story about a guy. He was fixing himself. This is the craziest thing I ever remember in my life. But he was fixing himself a grilled cheese sandwich, right? And then all of a sudden, as he's fixing this grilled cheese sandwich, he says the face of Jesus appeared on his grilled cheese sandwich. And he saved that grilled cheese sandwich. And everybody in the tri-state area came to look at that grilled cheese sandwich. And he convinced everybody, it's right there. That's what I'm talking about.
Father Mike, I was about to be real disappointed if you didn't say sandwich instead of sandwich.
Oh, yes, sandwich. A grilled cheese sandwich. But, that's the craziest thing ever. I don't know why it popped into my mind.
Did you go see the GCS?
Sandwich?
I would have ate it. So
this way to it tastes good. You can see the signs on the street. This way to the sandwich.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question. So, I would think that in addition to a tulpa, kind of the purest expression of what a thought form could be, as long as you don't mind the spiritual aspect to it, would be a Greek daemon.
A Greek what?
Daemon.
Daemon.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought meant an animating spirit.
Yeah, but they usually reside within the realm of the intellect.
Okay.
And can often serve as a muse substitute or an avatar to a muse. Mm-hmm. And they are meant to provide insight and guidance. And if these things, if you take the Greek concept, then yes, they are actual spirits that visit people. But if they were taken more from just a pure mental aspect to it, then I couldn't think of a more pure version of what a thought form could be than to be a Greek daemon. Anyway, it's just a random thought.
Okay, so well, expand on it just a little bit. Give characteristics of what a daemon is, right? Because I think that's really where in IT you have daemons, you have processes that run independently on their own. Correct. In the background.
Exactly.
Right? And I think that's where that came from. So describe a little bit more, flesh it out for people who don't know.
Yeah, sure. Linux or Unix processes called daemons do come from this, and they are independent beings which, when they interact with humans, normally provide insights. And they are an integral part to quite a few different Greek myths that are out there. In fact, I love the name so much that when I ran a...
I'm sorry, I interrupted, but you're Veiled Daemon.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. When I was a teenager, I read a book. I think it was called The War of the Dragons. It was the most generic title in the world, but it was by the author Mark Acre, if my mind remembers correctly. And the main character was an old man, an old wizard, evil wizard, whose name was Valdaimon, and it was Valedaimon. And I'm like, oh, that is such a perfect name. I am taking that. And so for my online persona, I became Val Daemon, which is just instead of the I, it's the E after the A. And that has been my moniker ever since I was like 19 years old.
It's a good one. So what was the origin of these Greek daemons?
I don't. My Greek philosophies, my Greek mythologies are a tad bit rusty, so I would have to go back and look.
Well, Dave, I'm going to. I don't have an answer here, but I'm going to say that it kind of supports my thought theory of the paranormal zoo. I mean, some people look at this stuff as being very simplistic. You have demons and non-demons and humans. I think there's a lot of other species out there.
I agree.
And the veiled, the daemon might be one of those. Can I talk about a couple of stories?
Sure. No.
Okay.
No, please do.
Has anybody read the story Sredni Vashtar?
Definitely not.
Okay. Sredni Vashtar, I think was, it was either Saki or H.H. Munro. One of these British authors that wrote these little horror stories, and they never used their real name. So there are a lot of British low-key horror stories about what you might call thought forms. And Sredni Vashtar is about a little boy. He gets a new governess in the house. And the governess is horrible. She's abusive. She's always angry. She's always yelling at the boy. She slaps him. So his life is miserable. They live on it's a wealthy British family, and the father is off hunting tigers or suppressing people in third world countries or whatever he's supposed to be doing. What the British aristocracy does. And so every time the little boy gets angry, he builds up this energy. And in one of the sheds on the property is something like a ferret or a weasel, some little animal that lives out there. And in the boy's mind, this thing starts to become something more like a tiger or a beast. And eventually he builds up so much psychic energy that when the evil governess goes out there to, get some potatoes or something out of the little shed, Sredni Vashtar, which is what this boy has named it, takes care of the evil governess. So that was a thought form based upon something that already existed. But in the story, he's able to make it, instead of a 2-pound ferret, it's a 400-pound tiger. And we have one less evil governess. I love stories, and and there's old
Josh bring it up.
Hey, look, one of the things we didn't talk about before when we started the show is that we have Josh Birdsong, and Josh Birdsong is brilliant, and he's often the wings, and he's the information provider. And as we're talking, he's throwing us information from various websites and various things. And so anything we're confused about, we've got it, because Josh has us covered. Dave, there's you're telling me about some podcast where they've got a guy like that.
Yeah. It was the Joe Rogan podcast has Jamie off in the background doing, throwing stuff up on the screen for them when they're discussing. And
Josh is our Daemon.
Josh is our Daemon.
That's right. Okay. Not to be confused with demon. It is not demon Josh.
It's a Daemon.
It's Daemon Josh.
Yeah, Josh is the demon chaser.
And see, a problem I have is I voraciously read all these stories, and then I forget the title.
I do too.
I remember the story down to the least detail, but the title, just gone. Well, I read a story one time, and one of the best places to read very, very good science fiction stories before it went out of business was Omni Magazine. Who here remembers Omni Magazine?
I didn't read it, but I know the title.
Time.
But Omni Magazine was published by Bob Guccione, who also published Penthouse.
I am familiar with that one.
I know that one.
Well, they both have great fiction in them, I've heard.
Yeah. You used to have the Penthouse stories. That was okay. So anyway, the story was there's an artist, this woman who's lived a life that she's found fairly satisfying. She's a very good artist, but she lost a husband that she loves very much. One of her children is doing well. The other one is not doing so well. And then one day, these people show up, mysterious people, men in hats. And they say, hey, listen, we've been watching your art, and we think you're the person to help us with our job. Okay, well, what's your job? Why don't you let us watch you a little bit longer, and then we'll tell you. So they do. Then they say, okay, here's the skinny. God is dying. God's brain, or God, whatever God uses to remember things in the world, is starting to fade away. You don't notice it because the only reason that things continue to exist is because God holds them in his mind. And so what we need you to do is whenever we bring you something, a scene or an object or a person or something, we need you to create the best image of that you can using your art, your talent. Can't just be any artist. There's something about you when you were created. We think that God created you as a failsafe. So there may be other failsafes out there, but you do exist. And so when we become aware that God is losing some memory, some thought form that's important, we'll come to you and you will create a painting that will make God remember it. I just thought it was an outstanding idea for a story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Just a great idea for a story. And at first, she's really reluctant to do so. And then they kind of get tough. They say, well, look, the one son who is doing so well? Well, if you don't do what we ask you to do, then his life's going to go down the toilet too. And the husband that you miss who died? Well, we can bring him back if you do what we ask you to do. So she becomes the keeper of God's, or the refresher of God's memories. And in this story, the only reason that anything continues to exist is because God holds it in his mind. That's a little different view of thought forms. I don't.
That's a very interesting one, though.
It lines up, though. I mean, it's very. That's interesting.
And I've got a couple of more. First off, there's the book I threw across the room. One of the few books I've ever just thrown across the room. I can remember sitting on the floor down on my, you sit with your elbows up and you've got the book and if you're a kid, you've got some chocolate milk over there. I read books like that until I was 40. But the book was The Number of the Beast by Robert Heinlein.
I thought you were talking about Iron Maiden for a moment.
Nope. This is Robert Heinlein. And the book was promising until they got to the chapter of, well, we need to dispense with the idea of sexual mores, and we need to breed people to bring about the best talent. And so they wanted a mathematician above all other mathematicians, and they wanted a father to impregnate his daughter to do this. And I was just like, all right, I'm sorry, Robert. You've always been weird. This is too weird. Book sales across the room. But what the number of the beast means is that there are 6 to the 6th to the 6th universes, accessible universes, 6 to the 36th. And they have a car that can, through incredible technological mastery, take you to random universes. You never know what you're going to find when you get there. Sometimes you could just go to a universe that's nothing but nuclear fire everywhere. You could go to a universe that's just like Earth, but they don't have K. Earth without a K. But sometimes you go to a universe and you find that it's Oz. Or you find that it is the universe of While You Were Sleeping. Or you find that it's the universe of Star Wars. Or you find that it's the universe of just... So in this world, every story that has enough human mental energy becomes real in some universe somewhere. Which I also thought was a pretty good idea.
So multidimensional thought forms.
Multidimensional thought forms. And you can take powers from one universe and take them to another. So, look, Heinlein was a great, great author until he just got into the really weird stuff.
Yeah.
But okay, let's see. One last thing.
What was the book? The cat who
walked through walls. Not one I recommend.
No, I read that book. That was a book I threw across the wall.
Yeah, that was the worst book I've ever read by him. It was,
and I mean, the only thing it had was the word grok, which was kind of interesting, but the rest of it was just absolute BS. And I never read another Heinlein book after that.
Well, I love the word grok. I mean, that is a really important word for the kind of stuff that we do, okay? Like creating programs, creating simulations. There comes a point where you have grokked that thing, and it lives within your mind for a period of time, maybe only a few weeks. Because once you've built this huge simulation and you handed it off and you've stepped away, in 2 weeks you ain't grokking it no more.
Yeah, I don't know if it was in both or that was in Stranger in a Strange Land.
It's mainly known in Stranger in a Strange Land.
From that was, I remember there was this one point where he read the Bible and it's like, oh, I grokked this. Mm-hmm. And his answer was that thou art God.
Thou art God, yes.
But yeah, that idea of fully understanding something.
And I guess the last thing I have to say is I'm going to go back to my story of one of my moral downfalls. When I was at a party in high school, and there were all these cute, vapid, funny, jiggly girls. Look, my high school couldn't have been the only one that had cute,
jiggly
funny
girls.
Cute, funny, vapid, jiggly girls.
No, yeah.
It's a common species.
Definitely not.
And they were wanting to do a seance, or they were wanting to do some kind of mumbo-jumbo kind of thing, and they didn't know what to do. And being a guy who reads a lot more than probably he should, I had recently read something about how to do a seance or how to communicate with the darkness. And so I said, hey, I know how to do it. I just read about it. Ooh, really? Can you help us? So I do. Very bad idea. It was not. I've told you the story before. In a few minutes, this girl named Valerie just stands up and just screams. And she says, there it is. There it is. There's Satan right there. There it is. Pointing up in the darkness. And she's trembling, and she's salivating and drooling, and she urinated on herself, and she's just absolutely terrified.
See y'all later.
What's that?
I said, that's when I would have said, see you later.
Well, look, I'm sitting there drowning in guilt, thinking, had I not come over and told them that I knew how to do this, this would not have happened. This is like JJ's time of trying to do the exorcism of place.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, I got some of the consequences. And I can remember her eyes were fixated on some spot in space. She was definitely seeing something. I assume that was, well, if it wasn't Satan himself, it was some kind of thought form that in her mind was Satan.
Mm-hmm.
Or something demonic.
Or something demonic.
Yeah.
Or she had some kind of mental problem that we didn't previously know about. Or whatever. But it was my fault that happened.
Yeah, you just need to learn that before you do the seance, Vic, you have to get them sign the liability waiver.
There you go.
Okay, that's an important pre-step to the seance.
I'm just amazed you went to a party in high school. I sure didn't. You're more popular than I am.
Yeah, but seance insurance is very expensive.
Seance insurance.
Insurance is very expensive.
Right. Let me.
That needs to be a commercial.
Let me wrap this around back to where we started.
Okay.
All right, and point out something interesting. So I've been sort of poking around trying to find origin of these daemons, the Greek daemons, where they come from, and I can't find it, but I find 2 or 3 things that are extremely interesting. One, it's frequently compared with the Djinn. And Djinn keeps coming up.
Boy, it sure does.
In our conversations lately.
A lot of times. Yeah.
But the second thing is that the daemons themselves are a lot like a thought form of something non-tangible. So if you think of a form, or I'm not sorry, not a thought, but a form that's non-tangible. So if you think the form of the chair, the form of the desk, right, and then it exists as a physical thing, each of these daemons represent some emotion, some experience, right? Love, hate, pain, stuff like that.
Spirit.
And so here is what's interesting about that, Father Mike. What do we talk about when we talk about demons? How often do you know the demon? It names itself as, the demon of lust, the demon of addiction, the demon of these non-tangible emotions or effects in a person's life. So it's like the form that can bring about the instantiation of that in your life, just like the form of the chair brings out the instance of a chair.
Right.
And to fit along with that, the pictures of them that are all drawn, about 3/4 of them, they all have wings. So there is that.
Very interesting.
This has been a great first topic.
Very interesting.
And I think that we have a brand new line of business for Bob Larson.
Hello there, this segment is brought to you by Rob Garson Seance Insurance. The only insurance that works around the clock to keep you and your home safe from any demon or specter. Seance home insurance sold separately. Call in today to get a discount of 5% off and a signed copy of Rob Garson's latest book, Rob Garson's 12 Steps to Success. Thank you.
Seance insurance. I think it's right up his alley. Sorry, that was a cheap shot, but I love it.
No. I'm trying to come up with some kind of jingle,
funny.
like
You just got to make sure you get it in writing, or else you're not going to get a refund.
Accurate.
That might be the title right there. Seance insurance.
Seance insurance. That should definitely be the title, But there needs to be a jingle, like a good neighbor. Seance insurance providers is there.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty lame.
No, but I like the concept. I like the idea.
And now, a critically important message from Reverend Rob Garson, direct
From Pascagoula, Mississippi.
My beloved brethren, this is the Right Dr. Reverend Rob Garson, lifelong pastor of the Pascagoula Church and Temple of Demonic Elimination, banishment, and long-term control. These boys these days, they don't have any genuine understanding of what is actually required to eliminate any and all demons from your area of immediate control. All you need, my brothers and sisters, is the Right Rob Garson PX3339 Demonic Elimination Decoder Ring. Yes, Lord. Don't send $199.99 to Reverend Rob. Don't send $99.99 to Reverend Rob. Just send 40 easy payments of $5.99 plus a $2.99 handling fee per payment to Reverend Rob, the exercising, dancing, the Woolly Master, to P.O. Box 1998, Division 3, Las Vegas, Nevada 88901. And remember that I can exercise that demon in 3. Reverend Rob, incantations. Praise the Lord. Have a good day.
All right, that's as good of a first topic as we've ever had.
Yeah, how about jumping into deep philosophy and all of that on the very first one? Huh?
I always wanted to. You know how whenever they teach the idea of Platonic forms, they always use a chair. You ever notice that? It's the first thing they go to. Like this is a chair, but it's an imperfect representation of the perfect representation or the perfect chair, the chair that embodies chairness. Well, I want to see that. Go ahead.
Either a chair or a horse.
Well, gentlemen, I think that was an excellent first round.
I thought it was wonderful.
I agree.
Yep.
So let's go with round 2. I'm going to read these with the understanding that this may not be the very best list we have ever chosen, but there's some pretty good stuff here. Topic 1, refusal to see things of the real world. What I'm talking about is like the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers were flying airplanes around for 5 or 6 years, and there were still people who would go to see an airplane fly, and they would say, nope, man can't fly. There's nothing heavier than air can fly. They've seen airplanes. You see behavior like that today. Topic 2, pica, geophagia, which is the eating of very bizarre things. Number 3, the silence of God. Which is a topic that I'm pretty dang interested in. Number 4, I don't know much about it, ancient astronomy. Number 5, astral projection, which is apparently how they got rid of Dave. Which was the guy they cut the silver cord
Anton
for?
LaVey.
Anton LaVey was a astral projection casualty.
So they say.
And then topic 6, Sister Lucia. Is she the real Sister Lucia? You know, kind of like Paul McCartney. They replaced Paul.
Yeah. And Elvis is still alive, too.
Elvis will be getting up there these days.
Actually, I would say this. It has nothing to do with any of this except for Paul McCartney. The best bit that has ever been on television was The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson.
I loved him.
Oh, I did too. I wish I would have actually watched it when it was out, but I caught it through YouTube well after the fact. But whenever Paul McCartney would come up, he would always show a picture of Angela Lansbury, who looked remarkably like Paul McCartney. And I giggled every single time.
He was a hoot.
Oh, he still is awesome. His comedy is amazing. But anyway, sorry.
Angela Lansbury looked like Paul McCartney.
I'm trying to picture that myself, but
there was
you got to see it.
Yeah,
the Murder She Wrote lady, the Sweeney Todd lady,
right?
Exactly.
Josh, you can find that one. Look for a side by side of Angela Lansbury and Paul McCartney that Ferguson used.
Well, maybe. Maybe it was the same person.
Well, you never saw the two of them.
Never saw the two of them together.
So well, I think in terms of topics, the first one is interesting.
It is.
Because, there's denial of paranormal stuff too, no matter how many times you're presented with it, and religious stuff. and experiences. There's a denial of a lot of things.
Well, you can't believe the number of flat earthers that have descended upon me.
Really?
Oh, yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Well, I tell you what, let's just go ahead and go with that subject. And if we want to get another, and let's do it. But let's go with number one first.
This could be a quick one. Well, look, I've read about these people that for years and years after the Wright brothers started flying airplanes, there were college professors, newspaper editors, engineers, people just absolutely saying, nope, I don't care what you say. I don't care what you show me. It's an illusion. There's not anything heavier than air flying out there.
Are you serious about that?
I am absolutely serious about that. And this is, to me, very much kind of like people who will say, well, all those rocket launches are fake. They don't really have it. We don't have any rocket launches. I mean, Dave, I guess things settle down there for a little bit.
2-3 times a month.
2-3 times a week for a while.
Oh, yeah. For a while, they were putting up a bunch.
They were putting up a bunch. But at least once a week now, there will be something from SpaceX going up. Occasionally, they'll throw in a rocket from another company. But they'll get back up to that same pace. And
so I guess if we can't fly, then Columbia didn't actually blow up, right?
Well,
correct. Well,
yeah, correct. I mean, these people will go deep down a rabbit hole and just stay there. Yes, nothing has ever gone. Well, the main flat earthers that are contacting me now are saying things like, "You just are too stupid to realize there's a firmament." Okay. And that.
So what do they think happens to the firmament when those rockets hit it?
Well, they
rockets just bounce off?
They kind of slide along the firmament and then they fall back into the ocean. Mm. And so there's never anybody on these rockets. There's never any satellites or anything. And they do have different ideas. It's not like they've got an approved canon or an approved textbook. But
so my question is this. I mean, you guys know more about this than I do because I can't help it. I just tune this stuff out so I don't get ticked off. So what is their core reasoning to say the earth is flat when science and physics proves it? They want to dispel God all the time because of the non-scientific stuff. But okay, here it is right in front of you now. So I don't understand. I hate to be ignorant of the fact, but I don't understand why it's proven and they still can't see it. What's their reasoning?
Can't tell you.
Okay.
But we experience the world as flat, so therefore it must be flat. And I remember as a kid, realizing that if the world was round, then that would mean if I'm on the opposite side of the world, then I would be upside down. And always having a trouble coming to grips with that until you gather just a tad bit of scientific knowledge. You went, oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
And we're vertical right now too.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, in my opinion, it's just people wanting to buck the whatever, bloody trend, whatever the established knowledge is. They just want to buck it in order to feel special.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
Mostly. But you do run into people who aren't in that category, such as Brad, that I interviewed recently. He's not joking. At least I don't think he's joking. What do you say, Dave? I think he's...
No, he's very serious.
Yeah.
And, and it was a great interview. He was very cordial and appreciative of getting the chance to talk about it. But here's the thing about it. They have a certain number of explanations on why things are the way they are, and science isn't accurate.
Right, they do.
So they have their own scientific-like explanations.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is they don't seem to go far enough in the scientific knowledge to learn why they're not accurate. Right. So they know the basics of it and they go, okay, well, because of that, this. And then for everything that doesn't have an explanation, or when you get beyond that, it's always, well, that's because they're faking it, right? It's because NASA has, it doesn't shoot rockets up in the air. They're a movie studio, right? They're making all of these movies that we are seeing the output of. And it's all about the conspiracy to hide the truth from you. And so, yeah, that makes up a big portion of it. But they do have some initial explanations that seem reasonable and explanatory. And then when they peter out, then you hit conspiracy. Is that accurate, Vic?
Yeah, pretty much. I think so. I mean, the vast majority of these people are trolls. Okay,
yes.
A certain number of them are. Well, is there a difference between a troll and a Poe? I guess really not.
What's a Poe?
It's Poe's law, and that is when you're arguing a weird extreme position on the internet, it's impossible to differentiate between somebody who's sincere and someone who's just coming up with a bunch of horse hockey. Okay, because
especially when there's money involved.
True.
Yeah, I mean, but it's impossible to tell the difference between them.
Yeah.
And so the vast majority of these people are trolls. And the one thing you can tell is just I don't know, I guess you could call it the smiley face ratio. The smiley face emoji. First off, I hate emojis. I use emojis as little as possible everywhere I go. I just hate them. But the smiley face emoji means I don't have anything to say. I just want to be insulting. Now, they didn't have smiley face emergencies back in 1905, but Val Zavala talks about something that is pretty interesting. Okay, remember Val?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he'll say, because Val's interviewing all kinds of people who have seen Bigfoot-like creatures and other creatures. Once again, Paranormal Zoo stuff, and he will say that all of them. I just came across the picture of Angela Lansbury and Paul McCartney.
See, it's similar. It's not exact, but it's similar.
Anyway, they'll say, "Oh no, I've never seen a Bigfoot. I did see this really weird bear. I mean, man, it was It was a really, really weird bear." Now, so that is one aspect of what's going on here. Is certain human psyches seem to be able to allow things that aren't part of their world into their minds, into their brains, and say, okay, I can't prove that doesn't exist. I can't prove that does exist, but I can entertain the thought that it might exist. And then certain human brains and minds just can't do that. So if something doesn't,
they adapt what they see to what their mind, fits in their mind.
So if something doesn't exist within their paradigm, then they can just say, nope, that was a bear.
Yes, that was not a plane going over. That was just
that was
a really odd bird.
Well organized flock of birds.
Yes, with blinking lights.
You see it in medical. You see it with blinking lights. Yeah, you see it in medical diagnoses. You can show people MRIs, CTs. This is a brain tumor. No, it's not. And you simply cannot convince them that it actually is
a flesh wound.
It's a flesh wound. Yeah, tis only a scratch. So I'm not quite sure where to take this topic after this point. But
well, with everything that you just said, in my limited knowledge, with everything that you just said, it takes us right back to the first conversation we had. They refuse to see except what they want to see. And that takes us right back to the very first conversation we had.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to see it, or if I don't want to see it, well, then there you go. If people, I remember in grade school reading about Christopher Columbus and how he proved the world was not flat, by sailing to America and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand if the proof is in front of you. If you just refuse to see it, then you're just not going to see it.
All right, let's take this a certain direction here, Father
Right.
Mike. How many people in your experience as an exorcist have you had sit in front of you who have had oppression, obsession, beginnings of possession? They've got negative activity happening and they got everything else, and they go, but no, I'm just having bad luck.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've had that happen, right? You've had people sit there in front of you and go, no, I just don't think that that's what's happening here, Father Mike. I mean, I know at 3:00 every morning I wake up and there's this tall, shadowy looking thing, and I wake up with this scratch on my chest, but I'm pretty sure that my husband is scratching me by accident and that was just a dream.
Hello, this is Avalon Leanne Dankworth-Smythe, once again back with my astounding, almost unheard of levels of informational mojo. The behavior that Dave is talking about is exceedingly similar to the behavior that Douglas Adams referred to in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series as the human reaction to an SEP field. With SEP being short for somebody else's problem. I quote. An SEP is something we can't see, or don't see, or our brain doesn't let us see, because we think that it's somebody else's problem. The brain just edits it out. It's like a blind spot. If you look at it directly, you won't see it unless you know precisely what it is. Your only hope is to catch it by surprise out of the corner of your eye. The technology involved in making something properly invisible is so mind-bogglingly complex that 999,999,999 times out of 1 billion it's simpler just to take the thing away and do without it. The somebody else's problem field is much simpler, more effective, and can be run for over 100 years on a single torch battery. This is because it relies on people's natural predisposition not to see anything they don't want to, weren't expecting, or can't explain.
Yeah, true. And then you have people on the other end of the spectrum.
Oh, yeah, sure. Where everything,
right,
absolutely everything is demonic. No, sure. But you have people that go, their brains go out of its way to justify their position that something does not exist or is not real. And, it's not everybody has that openness.
True. And that goes to show, I mean, that has to be a learned behavior too. So that also goes right back to the same point that we were talking in the first go around, that if I convince myself something is there, I can probably convince you and make you see it.
Or the other way around.
Yeah.
If I can convince myself that it's not there, then I can stare straight at it and not see it.
Not true.
Now, the other thing that'll happen is we'll go on in an investigation. This is especially when we used to lead the public ones, right? You have somebody in the group who is a dead set, rational, this stuff does not exist, right? There are no ghosts, there's no paranormal, there's no demons, there's nothing spiritual, the end. And you will have less activity. Fewer things will happen. Sometimes nothing will happen. No EVPs, no experiences, no noises, nothing. Just having the person there who's convinced that it's not real will cause things to not happen.
I can see that, yeah.
Why do you think that is, Dave?
Well, Most of the places we investigated just had what I would consider human spirits, not demonic, not negative, just some tie to that location historically. And 9 times out of 10, they want to interact. They want to have some, giving you information or letting you know that they're there. And when somebody comes who is totally closed off to that, I think they can sense it, and they're just like, yeah, not tonight.
Why waste my time?
I don't need to convince somebody who is here that I'm existing. I'd much rather spend my time, save my energy up for the people that are interested in finding me, not for the ones that want to prove that I don't exist.
Well, that brings up an interesting idea. First off, the idea is that whatever you're encountering at these investigations, they have a type of intelligence. They have a type of memory. They have a type of decision-making process.
They seem to.
Okay.
The vast majority.
They are able to determine, I don't know if time exists in that realm, but apparently energy does, and they can say, this is not a good utilization of my energy, or this one is.
Right.
And that also means they can learn, because there's a memory of past times when they've done that.
There's no question about that in my mind. I mean, I know people will question it, but the more time you spend at a site that has activity, the more familiar they become with you, and the more activity you will have happen. And in some cases, they'll start interacting with you based on previous information.
Well, that kind of leads me to a question that I want to ask JJ. David mentioned something about something maybe tied to a place. I say regularly something tied to the land.
Mm-hmm.
And, he just said, the more time we spend at a place, the more open things get, so to speak. It kind of reminded me of the woods in Japan that you were talking about that time, that people go out just to commit suicide. What was it?
Aokigahara.
How influential is that land upon people that you just can't deny it? Because I would like to see someone deny that.
Really good question.
Actually, yeah. I was with 3 people that felt absolutely nothing when we went. Whereas I heard this odd humming sound that was coming from everywhere. And I felt like things were crawling up my spine. And I am not a sensitive person. I am definitely not psychic. And I couldn't stand to be there. It was 20 minutes in. I was the one who urged us to go. We spent 5 hours in the car to get there and much longer to get back. And I still wanted to get the frick out of there. And I swore I would never go back. So it may not be the best example, because I don't know. It wasn't that they were skeptics. It's just that they didn't see anything. They didn't feel anything. They didn't hear anything. And so it was just another trip to the woods to them.
But some of the people... Let me
venture an idea.
I'll get you there in just a second. But some of the people that you were with could have just had a picnic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And would have been just perfectly happy.
In fact, we took some pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all smiles and happy. And I felt like I was about to... Excuse me. And I felt like I was about to be run out of town.
Have you felt that way any other places?
Yes. Yeah, but not nearly to that extent.
Not nearly to that extent.
No, I was absolutely creeped out. And I wish I could say it was just the idea of the place got into my head. it wasn't that. I look forward to these types of experiences. I enjoy them. And I did not enjoy being there whatsoever. And actually, before we switch over to Dave, there's one other theory that I know that kind of, I think that Anna Maria would subscribe to it, and it may be a simpler worldview. And it's the sense that these places, like, you would encounter these things if there were people that were not absolutely closed off. Maybe it's the fact that if people are energy sources, and the more receptive you are, the more energy that there is, then suddenly these things are called in and are attracted to it. And if you have a hardcore skeptic that slammed up that wall and said, nope, absolutely not, maybe that detracts from the energy and there's nothing there. So, it could be that there's active intelligence. It could be more of an instinctual thing. I'm not making a claim one way or the other, so I don't know. But anyway, sorry.
No, I think you're right. I think it's very true. If you are closed off to things, it has a much harder time interacting with you. When we've talked about Aokigahara in the past, one of the things that we talked about was how, given the history, the length of time that people have been committing suicide in that environment, and the number of people who have done so, has most likely attracted a significant amount of demonic activity. Okay, so,
I would say so.
You are talking about, just like the house that has a triple murder in it, some horrible event is more likely to have something negative happen there beyond just people who were killed. And Aokigahara fits that to the T. It's very possible that you experience that different than other people because it was demonic activity you were experiencing, or not even necessarily demonic activity, demonic awareness. Just like Father Mike, when he walked into that spiritual shop in New Orleans, right? And he got a headache and felt the pressure and was like, boy, I got to get out of here. There was something negative happening there. And his intuition, his, like we sort of talked about, his spiritual immune system set off warning bells, right? The same thing might have been happening there. Not because of just people who have died in there, but because of something that has taken up residence and that you are feeling that.
It could be. I've never actually even thought of that possibility before.
I would imagine that there have been all kinds of people doing paranormal investigation in that forest.
Well, JJ, you mentioned about people having or sensing a certain type of energy or having a certain type of energy. And you can compare that with being spiritually sensitive to certain things like that. And that would be the characteristic that I would put you in, by feeling that you may have that energy, so to speak, but really you're spiritual sensitive to the infernal or to negative spirits than others are. So therefore you were able to feel it and say, I got to get out of here, the same way I did when I went to where I didn't belong.
It could be. I honestly have no idea. All I know is that everything in my brain was screaming at me to get the F out.
That's a sensitive, yeah.
And I had to. Yeah. I could not stand to be there. I have never felt so shaken in my entire life. And maybe it's something demonic. Maybe it's just the fact that people are so overwhelmed with grief that they want to take their own lives, and they hang out there for a week or two at a time if they don't have the courage to do it immediately, and they just stay out in a tent until they work up the courage and then they do it.
Well, that probably plays a big role into it as well, because I mean, you got to figure the state that they're in, they want to end their life, but they don't have the courage to do it at that point. So they sit out there and they fester and stew like an infection, like a cancer. And that roots itself, if you will, into the land. And then when the ultimate price comes where they take their own life, it's cemented or sealed into that land. Does that make sense to you?
It does. Yeah. And the fact that the ground is just nothing but volcanic glass underneath it. I mean, there are so many weird and strange, just geological aspects to Aokigahara. Nevertheless, the spiritual side of things. And yeah.
Wow.
But I will not go back.
Oh, well, no.
It's still on my bucket list.
So it's just funny to me, guys, that sometimes, back to the topic, that you can have all the information right in front of your face and people still refuse to see it. And I think that's what it really boils down to, is that they already have it made up in their mind that it doesn't exist, or this has never happened, or they believe what grandma said 100 years ago. And that's just the way it's going to be. And there's no changing anybody's mind.
Well, this is only peripherally related to what JJ was saying, but there is a woman I read about recently who she started noticing that her husband smelled differently. So she'd come home every day and Bob, have you taken a shower lately? Why do you smell different? And Bob was denying that he smelled different at all.
Well, I know where you're going with it.
It turns out that he had Parkinson's, and she could smell the physical changes that were happening in his body with Parkinson's.
That's interesting.
And some doctor became aware of her claim and tested it. Gave her T-shirts that a control group and a Parkinson's group had worn, and she could smell these T-shirts and said Parkinson's, non-Parkinson's, Parkinson's. And one T-shirt she was smelling and she said probably Parkinson's. And he had just not developed symptoms yet. So, like a week or two later, he began developing symptoms. So she had that sensitivity. Okay, I'm trying to put my mind where JJ was in that. What'd you say, JJ? You heard a hum, a buzz. I mean, there was some sound associated with this.
Yeah, it was a low. It was a low grade hum. No, and it would go in waves. It would be rum, rum.
Oh boy!
And it just kept, and it never stopped. And at first, I thought, because the trees of Aokigahara, they form a natural sound barrier, and we parked near a major highway, and then began to walk into the woods.
Right.
And as soon as you walk into those woods, it's like silence envelops you. But I still heard this hum. And I thought, maybe I'm just hearing traffic go by and nobody else can. Not that I have super sensitive hearing or anything. But as we kept getting further in, I still heard it, and it kept getting stronger. And I was freaked out.
I could understand being freaked out. And so, wasn't there, I know we've got a couple of Star Trek people here, Wasn't there a Star Trek episode where there was this planet that had some particular energy to it, and when people died, their spirits, their souls were stuck on that planet? They couldn't get away, and so Father Mike's got that look in his face like, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I think that was in TOS, the original series.
I don't remember which one.
I know it's not TNG, and it's not Deep Space Nine.
I think it was in the original. The original. I remember it, but I don't remember.
It's been like 30 years since I've seen it.
Yeah,
if I have.
I want to say it was in the original because the people stayed there, but I think the driving force behind everybody, all the people before them was kind of like loaded into this computer thing. Oh Lord, what was?
Well, there was one where there was a war between these planets,
right?
And instead of using rockets and missiles and tanks and atomic bombs, they just did lotteries, and it was okie dokie.
Oh yeah, I remember
you have
that.
120,000 casualties this week, and people would just calmly line up in front of the casualty machine and walk right in.
Right.
Walk into the incinerator.
But, I mean, the whole idea of Aokigahara, how do you say it? Aokigahara?
Oh, Aokigahara, Sea of Trees.
Aokigahara, Sea of Trees. Really good image.
Yes, it is.
But
imagine beautiful too.
Well, but imagine that you felt depressed and you felt like, okay, the only escape is suicide. And so I'm going to go to Aokigahara and I'm going to see if I can work up the courage to commit suicide. And I'm assuming there must be people who go there for a couple of weeks and change their mind.
There are. In fact, there are signs everywhere that urge people to reconsider, because this is the second most popular suicide spot in the world next to the Golden Gate Bridge.
Right. But so anyway, you go out there and you do finally work up the courage to take your life, and then you're stuck. There's whatever the volcanic rock, the spirits of Aokigahara prevent you from leaving, and so it's like your own little earthly purgatory, hell. This damaged, yearning soul simply ain't able to leave. That's a pretty horrible thought.
Do y'all remember the 80s horror TV show Tales from the Dark Side?
I do.
Yep.
I love it. But when I was a kid, and it was just the introduction
scared snot out of me when I was a kid.
Oh, it does me. It still gives me the creeps when I watch it, because when you get that photo negative of the dark forest and that song is playing, and that's kind of the same kind of like itchy feeling on my spine that I got when I was in there, and I kept hearing that hum, and yeah,
I think you were hearing the 10,000 souls that regretted what happened and wish they could leave.
Josh, what is this thing about the hum that you posted?
Oh, he's talking about the Taoist hum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is entirely different. Although it's an interesting, side thought to that, though. But yeah, the last thing I wanted to bring up, at least around Aokigahara, and I'm not trying to dominate the situation.
No, I think it's very interesting.
Yeah. There are people that form suicide pacts, and it's a very popular topic for syndicated horror documentaries or TV shows in Japan, because summer is the time for horror, and that the idea is it cools you off, and so people love to tell scary stories. But there would be these people that will be on a chat room. They realize they found other people who want to be in the same situation as them. They'll meet up in some ward in Tokyo, and then they will all drive out. They won't talk to each other, and they get out, and then they do it. And it's just one of the saddest. I mean, I know it's supposed to be a topic of horror, but to me, that is just infinitely sad.
Is that within inside of each other? Like a suicide circle?
Oh no, they're like, once they get there, and it's really just people getting a ride to the forest. And once they get there, they just scatter and they go their own way. And usually the owners of the car will leave the keys in it. So it's easier for authorities to get it out again. And then they go off and they do it.
All right, 2 morbid questions. What is the primary method of suicide in that forest?
I'm not sure if there is a primary. I do know that hanging is a popular choice. Another one is taking overdosing on prescriptions. And then third is stabbing yourself through like seppuku.
So a more traditional method. And a horrible way to go.
Oh, it is to stab and then turn and then rip to the side.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
And then the second morbid and somewhat cruel question is, I wonder if any local used car dealers go...
Wow.
That's a good question. Now, I do know that they used to have monthly, like the park, like the authorities and those for those towns and areas, they would go and look for bodies every month. And then due to COVID, that drastically reduced to once every 6 months. Which, could not imagine.
Can we talk? Father Mike was laughing when I said local used car dealer.
I can't get over that.
It's just like,
have I got a special for you today?
It's Kawasaki suicide sale. Come on down.
well, I mean, I don't put that past anybody.
No, I don't.
Saying,
no, I don't.
We need some inventory.
That's right.
Oh, really, Josh? Holy crap.
Uh-oh. Apparently there's someone named
Junji
Inagawa
who experienced the same hum I did. Yeah,
wow.
See, that's the thing. I've never even looked into if that hum had ever been experienced. I just assumed it was some strange quirk with me and left it at that. But see, that's one of the things.
Apparently, they experienced it and they described it as sounding almost human, like a Buddhist hum.
Yeah, and see, that brings up another topic. So just like in our conversation that we had on Southern Demonology for the house on Haunted Hill.
Oh yeah.
How in the second part of it, Josh, when you were saying that, you heard a bell and then a person downstairs heard angels singing. I never applied the same thought to the inverse. If it is something evil and it is producing the sound, can that be interpreted or heard or experienced in various means and fashions?
Yeah, it's a electric guitar
or fiddle
with one of those pedals, distortion pedals, instead of a bell.
But I could see, because it was that home, Oh, I can see that easily being likened to a monk's chant.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a meditation.
Oh, that scares me even more. Holy crap.
Or wait, before you get too scared. It could be protective. It could be monks trying to protect those souls. Monks.
There was nothing good about this.
There's nothing good about this. Okay.
It was get the hell out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll.
So the sound had menace with it.
Wow.
The more I heard it, the scareder I got.
Ooh. Well, I'm glad you got out of there.
Oh, I am too. I was tickled to death. And then I almost died the next day when we went to Fujiland. Fujiland? Yeah, it was Fujiland Q. We went there and I rode a ride that a big person that's not supposed to ride and almost fell out like 80 feet up in the air and dashed my head on the... I always hold on to that safety bar for dear life. I'll put it that way.
Oh, my. That sounds like something I'd do.
Fuji Q Highland. That's the name of it. Oh, my God. It's going to drive me crazy. Sorry.
Okay. Can we close this out with something a little happier?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Pull another topic.
Anybody got? Okay, so I'm just going to go through this till I find something that seems kind of happy.
We can talk about rabbits again.
We can talk about rabbits again. Well, Mel's Hole came up. Mel's Hole's always kind of fun.
Mel's Hole is an interesting one.
It is.
Say that again. What?
Mel's Hole?
Mel's Hole.
Like Mel's Diner, but it's a hole.
You don't know about Mel's Hole?
No.
Dave, what about you?
Back in my mind's tingling, but I can't pick it up.
Okay. Well, who wants to give the quick story of Mel's Hole?
I know it from the Art Bell perspective.
Yep.
Go for it.
So, and you can correct me if I get any of these details wrong, Vic, but
hey, they're different every time I hear it. So
but yeah, there was a individual who came on the show. Was it a caller? I think it was a caller.
Yeah, Mel Waters.
Yeah, and he was saying that he had a hole on his property that they would often toss trash down into. And it was just a nice, easy way of getting rid of things. And then after doing some research and trying to figure it out, they realized that whenever they would dump something, there would be absolutely zero sound of anything hitting a theoretical bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And it became a source of mystery. And this man, it became his whole personality, essentially. I'll let you pick it up from there.
He would get miles and miles of fishing line and put a weight on the end of it and try to lower the fishing line down to where they'd get to some kind of bottom. Thinking there would be water down there, he would tie lifesavers to the end of some kind of string and get it down there. And then there were stories like he had a dog that died, and they threw the dog down the hole, the dead dog down the hole, and then a few days later they see this dog again. But it wasn't the same. It was it was a nice, sweet, pleasant, sit in your lap and lick your face and pant kind of dog, and now it was kind of this evil dog.
Pet Cemetery.
Pet Cemetery.
Pet Cemetery.
Mm-hmm. Actually, have y'all been watching the latest season of Evil?
No, not yet.
Okay, you got to see it. It holds up. It's really, really good. But there's an episode, I think it may be the first or the second episode. I think it's the first of the entire season that's set in a nuclear, it is nuclear, but it's a proton accelerator.
Okay.
And there is one particular section in which there's a hole and they can't find a way around it. And I mean, how deep it is or anything. and bad things keep coming out of it.
Bad things come out of that hole.
It's awesome. It's really awesome.
Well, there's a show called Outer Range. Have you ever seen that?
It's on my list of things worth watching.
No, I haven't.
So they just released, not too long ago, season 2. It was a long time between season 1 and 2. But this guy has a hole on his property that he disposes of stuff in. It sounds just like
it's taken from Mel's hole.
You can't see past a certain level down, and it just like stuff poof disappears. But some stuff winds up coming back out, and it's very interesting.
Well, I think the story kind of gets to the point, just like most conspiracy theory stories. Sooner or later, after he's called Art Bell a few times, the government gets wind of, there's a hole out there that's a bottomless pit. And so they show up and, hey, your land is being occupied through eminent domain, or something like that.
Sounds like Stranger Things on Netflix or wherever.
And he kind of, finally they say to him something like, all right, here's the deal. Shut up about the hole. Move your keister to Hawaii. And every month in your bank account, there'll be $200,000. Look, that's a pretty good disappear kind of deal.
I'd take it.
I'd take it.
So that's about all I know about Mel's Hole. But that's a really, really good story.
No, it is. And I've seen a few TikTok videos about it surface as of late. It doesn't really add anything to the story, but the fact that I even knew what the heck it was talking about, and I was like, oh, okay, that's Art Bell. That's cool.
Well, one of the funny things is, how he would get these faxes back then. So somebody faxed him and he said, hey, I've got a hole just like Mel's Hole, except I keep finding old refrigerators and dead dogs. And
I was about to say, I have a hole in my backyard too. So you think they'll put $200,000 in my bank account?
If you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll come help you dig
what I'm
it,
about to
and
say.
we'll split the 200,000.
There you go. Yeah. I'll move to Hawaii with that $200,000 every month. Say, hey guys,
you're gonna need a long rope to get back up.
I say, hey guys, I got plane tickets waiting on y'all. Come over this week and let's do the PRD show.
Actually, there's so this isn't quite related to Mel's Hole, but it is related to another topic that Art Bell loved to bring up occasionally, and that is aircraft being haunted.
Aircraft?
Yeah.
That's cool.
He would always say that he had a friend who worked at a major airline and he would never reveal which one, and that there would be more hauntings on airplanes than anywhere else. And in fact, it was just a few days ago, I ran across a TikTok of a pilot who was saying that he was flying into, I think it was North Carolina, and there are 2 different runways. There's a really long one that goes parallel in a diagonal, and then there's one that bisects it. And the one that bisects it is much shorter. And years ago, back in the 80s, there was a plane that got their signals crossed, and they took the shorter runway.
That was the Charlotte airport, wasn't it? Charlotte?
Yeah. Thank you. And it, of course, there wasn't nearly enough runway for this giant plane to land, and it ran off into the woods. It crashed, and everybody but the first the first mate died from that airplane. And there are still legends that they watch over that particular runway and make sure that no more of these accidents happen. Well, this pilot, they were taxiing off, and they were taxiing on that shorter runway, to take off, and his radar kept pinging that there was an aircraft right behind them, which is where that plane would have crashed. And he said, in these systems, they can be a little slow and outdated, so that it will pick up where your aircraft used to be and then confuse it for being another aircraft. But he said we sat there for 10, 15 minutes, and it just continuously kept beeping at us that there was another aircraft behind us. And he said, I don't know what it was. I don't know why it was there, but it was very, very strange, and it gave me the freaks.
It's a little disturbing to me that they're that accepting of a system that's supposed to warn you about aircraft that has some sort of memory that you used to be there in another spot, and it's relaying that. That's
true. But he was saying that it normally clears up very quickly. But
it shouldn't be there at all.
Trust me, I know.
I don't care how quickly it clears up.
Okay.
I much more like the idea that it's picking up the other lost plane.
And actually, that was another kind of theme that the latest season of Evil picked up on and ran with on one particular episode. It was kind of interesting.
So. What, an evil airplane or a?
No, this was around a relic that was smuggled out, and apparently there was a pilot that had died on the same flight back and forth who kept appearing and warning people of imminent danger. So,
Has anybody ever been on a plane that had trouble?
Yes.
I have too.
Tell me your trouble first.
Coming from Houston to Louisville, or maybe it was Louisville to Houston. I don't remember. And, I remember, what I do remember is I was sitting next to an Amish girl who had never been on an airplane before. And the pilot says, ladies and gentlemen, we're not getting a locked landing gear light.
Uh-oh.
The rear landing gear seems to be fine. The front landing gear doesn't seem to be giving us an indication that it's really locked. Now, so we don't know if that's because it's not locked or it's just because we don't have a good light there. So we're gonna fly around the tower and see what the tower says. So they do, and they said the tower says the landing gear is down, but it seems to be at an odd angle. So we think it's probably not locked. So when the flight attendants tell you to do so, please assume the crash position because we don't know what's going to happen.
Holy crap!
And so finally the attendants started saying, ladies and gentlemen, please put your seats in the locked and upright position. We need you to put your hands behind your head and put your face as close to your legs as you can get them. Get down. And we're doing that. And what I remember is the Amish girl kind of looks over at me and she says, do they always land like this? And I said, no, this is unusual. So anyway, we land and the pilot does an amazing job, and he keeps that nose up just as long as he can to slow that airplane down.
Slow it down, yeah.
And then finally we settle down to the runway, and then wham! That front landing gear collapses. And it's a loud sound, and you could feel that reverberation through the plane, and then you could hear this.
Yeah. That runway was not happy.
Kind of sound. And we were doing a little bit of shimmying and moving back and forth, but it came to a stop before the end of the runway. And then it's time to, do the door thing, the slides and all that. Take your shoes off. I remember some less than aware lady saying, "Oh, but these are my favorite shoes."
Yeah.
And everybody's saying, doesn't matter. I was thinking Father Mike's door just opened, and I was thinking, oh.
That's just Casper coming in.
but yeah, that was pretty scary.
Well, my experience, I think, ties back to this exact thing that we're talking about, JJ, an electronic phantom. I was younger, and I used to travel out to California to see my mom every year. And I would go through Charlotte most of the time. It's the closest flight from Roanoke to a main hub. I lived in Virginia. And so Charlotte is like you go up to cruising altitude, and then you turn the plane down and you go down, right? It's a 45-minute flight, it's up and down, the whole thing. And I think it was either Piedmont or maybe US Air after, I can't remember if Piedmont was still around, but 727, we're flying up, we get up and hit cruising altitude, but instead of, like sort of doing the normal 5 minutes and then slowly working down, he drops the nose and straight down.
Let's have some fun.
Okay. And I mean, it's one of those, we're going down at, I don't know what angle. It wasn't straight down, but it was way more than I've ever been on a plane. And I've been on a lot of planes. And it's like, I don't think he's going to pull up. No warning, no nothing. And then it couldn't have been but maybe 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet. He levels back out. Okay. And then he climbs back up to cruising altitude. 5 minutes later, he does it again.
Like a vomit comet.
And scared the crap out of me. Okay. Yeah. And I've been flying since I was 5 years old. All right. I had never had any fears of flying ever until this flight. So he did it twice and still never came on and said what was happening. I was talking to somebody about this years and years later, and he said, oh, when was this? And I don't even remember the year now, but I did then. I told him the year. He's like, yeah, they were just experimenting with those early warning crash detectors. And so in all likelihood, he was getting a phantom signal saying a crash was imminent. And his response was to dip the nose, go straight down to avoid the crash. And it just kept going off until finally he's like, okay, well, I can't go any further. And leveled it out and went back up.
I mean, a crash with another airplane was imminent.
Yeah. They had put out this new crash detection.
They didn't have the bugs worked out yet.
Like a proximity thing, and they hadn't had the bugs worked out. That's what this guy said.
He's probably right. I'm just trying to think of why you would do that.
I would want to know why the guy didn't say anything. Why?
I don't know. Everybody on the plane was white and scared to death, and he never came on and said a word. The stewardess were nervous. I mean, it was terrifying.
Sounds terrifying.
But we didn't get to jump out of the little slide, so it's not as good as your experience.
But the landing when it came was a normal landing.
No, this is a normal landing. Yeah.
The scariest experience I've ever had on a plane, and it doesn't rival either one of those two, but I was going to school in Boston and catching a flight from Nashville to DC and then DC to Logan in Boston. And on the night that we left from Nashville, there was a hurricane in DC. And we flew into that hurricane. And I have never been tossed around like that in my life on the airplane. Scared the ever-living bejesus out of me. And we finally land, and they closed the airport. No more flights are allowed out. They gave us a voucher for a hotel. Now I go stay at the hotel. We get up the next day, hop on a flight. We go up to Logan, fly into the same bloody hurricane in Logan. And and Logan has a very short runway that is directly next to the water. And that plane was just shimmying back and forth. I knew that we were never going to make it, and I was scared to death. I will never forget those two flights.
Why did that?
I was coming back from East Carolina University. I used to go to, during high school, I would go to a voice camp down there. And again, flying back to Roanoke, it's not a super long flight, but this was in a very small airplane, like a 20-seater, dual prop type of deal. And there was this line of storms on the horizon. And the pilot's like, well, ladies and gentlemen, we have these storms coming up, but I'm pretty sure we can beat them.
Pretty sure.
And we didn't. And we wound up spending 2 hours of dropping several hundred feet at a time when we would lose lift, and, you know, people getting sick around.
I think you had people barfing all over the place there.
Oh, yeah. It was, and I don't like roller coasters. It was a lot like a very uncomfortable roller coaster. And
that reminds me of my story. Years ago, it was back in 2004, I believe. My uncle had passed away, and I flew out to Oklahoma City to meet my aunt and then ride with her and drive her back to Alabama. So from Atlanta to Dallas-Fort Worth was the smoothest flight that I've ever been on in my life. And then I had to go from Dallas-Fort Worth to Oklahoma City, which, like JJ talks about, or maybe you go up and down, you know, you're there.
Yeah. Up and down.
But here comes the storms and the tornadoes. And so we get up to altitude. We hit all these storms. And like you said, I mean, you'd be going along, then you'd drop a couple of 1,000 feet, just boom, you know, I mean, it just jar your teeth loose. That would happen several times all the way through, and then they would climb back up and drop again. And about the third time that happened, it would drop, and I'd say, "Oh Jesus!" I bet those seats had my fingerprints in them until today.
They were having active tornadoes at that time.
Oh yeah. It was.
Anybody else
weather.
remember the WKRP episode where Les Nessman is having to do a tornado announcement and he doesn't have one? He has a communist announcement. You know, the communist announcement is the godless communists are invading. So he just took out the word communist and put in the word tornado.
Wow. That's fun. That's funny.
Yeah, the godless tornadoes are invading our land. I'm going to find that little clip and stick it in here.
Oh, yeah. That was a great show.
I don't know what to do. I told you there was a problem with this plan. What problem? It doesn't cover tornadoes. It's for what to do when the Russians attack. The Russians? Or Chinese?
Unless you take that emergency file and you get on the air. Then when you see the word Russians, you substitute the word tornado.
Ooh, that's a good idea. This is a special emergency report from WKRP in Cincinnati. Now, here with that report is Les Nessman.
Somebody else is supposed to read that. Just get back on the air.
The city of Cincinnati has just been attacked by the godless tornadoes. Citizens are advised to arm themselves immediately.
Give me that thing. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a report of 2 tornadoes in the immediate area. There could be others.
That happened several times, and about the 5th time I said, "Oh, Jesus." The men behind me said, "Amen, don't stop, brother." But the pilot, oh man, I wish I could have got to meet him because he gained a lot of respect for me that day. the pilot, coming down to land, the crosswinds were so strong that he, instead of landing the plane straight,
he's crabbing it. Yeah,
he landed that plane sideways, like
no
that.
Kidding.
You'll see it sometimes. Yeah,
and I'm like,
he drifted.
I said, now this guy knew what he was doing.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
It was smooth. It scared the snot out of me, but it was smooth. And I'm like, I got a lot of respect to that guy landing that plane like that.
Oh, me too. Me too. The guy who landed the plane with the collapsing landing gear, man, that guy was a pro.
Yeah.
Well, Rundown listeners, hopefully you're not all traveling on a plane right now, listening to the podcast.
Or being accosted by the godless tornadoes.
That's right.
Yes.
Or being like me and who can never sleep on an airplane. And when I was in college on a flight, I think I was heading to college, I happened to pick up a copy of Stephen King's Langoliers.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man.
It.
That's the best possible reading material on an airplane.
Yeah. Especially when you can't sleep.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, everyone who didn't sleep is dead. Thank you. I appreciate that. Great job.
Okay. Well, I guess that's probably the end of Season 2, Episode 2 of the Paranormal Rundown.
Enjoyed it.
This has been a lot of fun. This has been a good episode.
Heck yeah.
And we will have this out in 2 weeks, and I think the plan is to have a guest for the next episode if we can find someone whom we can subdue, right?
Well, speaking of that, Vic, I mean, you have thrown out this idea many, many times, and I want the listeners to hear it one more time, and just we open up a lot of discussions, and any discussion is welcome if it can be discussed in a proper, orderly manner. And I really want to have I mean, we've had flat earthers, this and that and the other, but I really would like a true non-believer.
So would I.
Let's just say an atheist. If you are an atheist and you are open for a genuine, honest discussion, non-argumentative, and willing to hear both sides, we welcome you. So please contact us, if you will, at what?
Feedback at paranormalrundown.com.
Absolutely. And we would be glad to have you and host you.
Absolutely. And I have asked, at this point, probably, 15 really serious atheist, materialist, reductionist kind of people. And once I explained to them what's going on, I don't think so. And I try to guarantee them that, look, you'll be treated like a king. You'll be treated with the utmost respect that we can give you. Nothing ever will be said negative about you. Your ideas might be challenged, but that's it. The idea is we're not coming on to interview you. We're creating this show to grab these random topics and take them where they take us. Mm-hmm. Follow them where they take us.
And our goal with any of these topics is to come at them from multiple angles.
Gain understanding.
Right? Yeah. We want to try to understand something better about the core of that topic. And, a skeptical view is a valid perspective.
It really is.
And we want that.
It really, really is. And I don't know, I think I speak for everybody here that all of us are a bit tired of the way the world has turned, in that respectful disagreement is almost impossible these days. It really is. It's very, very hard to find a place where people will not scream and yell at each other. But I know of one, and that's the Paranormal Rundown.
Absolutely.
No screaming and yelling here.
Okay, anybody got any final statements?
No, sir.
Excellent. Okay, well then I'm going to say this is the end. There will be, of course, we'll have some Cedric, and we'll have a little bit of Avalon, and maybe a WKRP in Cincinnati clip or two about those godless tornadoes. And so the feedback that I've gotten from people is they like Cedric, they like Avalon.
Yeah.
Which is good because I plan to keep them around. All right, ending the show. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been I'll just say to my colleagues, the people who do this with me, including Josh, who I think kind of gets overlooked sometime. Look, it's a genuine privilege to work with you guys on this.
Absolutely.
I mean that. I mean a genuine privilege where when I end the show, I'm thinking, boy, I'm glad I know those men.
Absolutely.
So,
feelings
Same
right
here, buddy.
All right.
Most definitely.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Hello, everybody. This is Vic Hermanson. Well, there's episode 2, season 2 of the Paranormal Rundown in the bag. You know, I guess I'm the person who came up with the idea for the Paranormal Rundown, but it was never going to be anything by myself. I needed these people. I needed Father Mike for his incredible life experience in bringing the Word of God to the world and taking some blows for that. I needed JJ for his incredible erudition, his brilliance, his incredible knowledge, and his willingness to share that with us, and his ability to make some really, really bad jokes. I needed Dave Griffith for his courage in actually walking into the lair of the enemy, into the netherworld, and coming back whole, and knowing something he didn't know before. I needed Deacon Josh for his willingness to help his father and to bring us knowledge while we're trying to do this crazy thing. But most of all, the Paranormal Rundown needs you, the listeners. We need you for all kinds of things. First off, please help us grow. If you can, like and review the podcast wherever that's possible. Like Chris James says, tell your friends, tell your buddies, tell your enemies, tell people you don't even know that they should be listening to the Paranormal Rundown, because there really is no other show just like it. No other show at all. We need you to send us your ideas. You know, we have 2,600 and something topics right now. It grows, it shrinks. I'll review it, we'll review it. We'll say, that topic doesn't really quite fit. Or we'll say, man, how do we miss that? And we'll put a new topic in. And think about how much fun it will be to talk about once the dice roll to that number. The Paranormal Rundown is a joint production of myself, Vic Hermanson, Dave Griffith, Father Michael Birdsong, Deacon Josh Birdsong, and last but not least, J.J. Johnson, Harvard scholar and ancient demonologist. Any music you heard during the show came from Lobo Loco, Smart Sound, or was in the public domain. Any media clips you heard, like the godless tornadoes, are used under the protection of the Fair Use Doctrine. Again, please contact us. Come on the show. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Rundown. And in 2 weeks, we'll be back again. You've been warned.